On this midweek episode of SchuZ Views, you'll get to see SchuZ's take on what's about to go down in the NBA playoffs. Plus, legendary high school basketball head coach Kurt Keener joins the show to hit up many topics that you're not going to want to miss. Finally, SchuZ Zone has you covered with some of the biggest topics of this week so far. That your week has been going great so far. I'm your host, Zach Shoemaker, and I'm here in Gilbert, Arizona, welcoming you to the 6th episode of SchuZ Views. I'm so excited to get into this today. This is a very special midweek episode where I'll be talking about all 16 playoff teams. You're not going to want to miss what All-American head coach Kurt Keener has to say. But without further ado, I want to get into this Eastern Conference right now. Folks, I'm going to get into this right away. Here's your standings, 1 through 8. Milwaukee's the number 1, then Toronto, followed by Philadelphia, Boston, Indiana, Brooklyn, Orlando, Detroit, clinching the very last spot Wednesday night against their win against New York. That being said, the very first game will be the Brooklyn Nets versus the Philadelphia 76ers, but I'm going to talk about the one versus the AC, which is Milwaukee versus Detroit. Some stats about Milwaukee, I'm going to break it down real quick. Their record is 60-22 this year with a home record of 33-8. Their away record is 27-14. Now, Milwaukee allowed the fewest points per game in the restricted area, only 29.6. That being said, that's going to cause some big problems for Detroit, which lost the season series 4-0 this year. Detroit record is 41-41. Their home record is 26-15. Their away record is 15-26. Okay? Now, Detroit scores almost all their points inside the restricted area. Think about Drummond, Blake Griffin, and so on. Those two guys are a dominant force down low. But Milwaukee can shut it down with Lopez, Antetokounmpo, and so on. Now, let me talk about this. Let me show some of this stuff right now. Here's the rotation we're looking at right now. Milwaukee's planning on not having Malcolm Brogdon for this first game. So right now you got Bledsoe, Middleton, Giannis, and Lopez locked in. I'm assuming that Sterling Brown will get that starting role. The backups will be, at point guard will be Frazier and Hill. You have Sterling Brown, Dante DiVincenzo, I believe it will be out. Pat Connaughton's been playing well. Snell may or may not be out. Mirotic might be out. Wilson's been stepping up big time. You got Ilyasova. Pau Gasol might be out. That's that. As for Detroit, you've got Reggie Jackson, Wayne Ellington, Bruce Brown, Blake Griffin, Drummond. Bruce Brown's been a very impressive rookie, starting over half the games now for this season. They have not put up a spectacular stat line, but he is a starting factor for that team. Ish Smith's one of the best backup point guards in the NBA. Luke Kennard showed up big time this year, folks. He's been really playing well the second half of the year. You got Svi and Glenn Robinson the third backing up Bruce Brown. You have Thonmaker, Pachulia, Lure, Calderon. Galloway's played an amazing brand of basketball this year. Here's the thing, though. I'm not too fond of this series. I got Milwaukee winning 4-1. I think Detroit can get a win because they are very talented in terms of Blake and Drummond. But here's the thing. Blake might be out, folks. And if that's the case, we're at issues. There's going to be big-time issues. Next game I want to talk about is Toronto versus Orlando. Season series record between them was 2-2 split, although Kawhi, Lowry, Siakam, many players did rest against Toronto. Also got to think Marc Gasol was out of the second half of the year. Not many teams played against this new and improved with Lynn and all. As for Toronto, the second seed, they finished with a record of 58-24 in the first year of Nick Nurse's head coaching career. Home record of 32-9. Very impressive, 26-15 on the road. That's what I'm going to say there. Now, Orlando was 42-40. Very impressive performance, also by the first-year head coach Steve Clifford. Home record of 25-16, winning many games straight. They've been 22-9 since January 29th. Or January 31st, my bad. Their away record is 17-24. All right? That's what I'm going to say there. Now, there's going to be a very interesting series right here ahead of us. As for Toronto, the number 2 seed, you got a rotation built around Kyle Lowry, Danny Green, Kawhi, Siakam, and Marc Gasol. Backups are Jeremy Lin and Fred VanVleet at the guard. That point guard is deep. You have McCaw and Jody Meeks at the backup shooting guard. They may not get too many minutes. Norman Powell's played an amazing game of basketball. OG Anunoby's taking a little bit of step back from last year, but he's still got a defensive game that's very, very great. You got Ibaka coming off the bench being a backup big man. He's been spectacular this year. As for the Orlando Magic, they are pretty much healthy. We have now received reports that Jonathan Isaac will play, in fact, this first game after dealing with some concussions. Vucevic is in as well. DJ Augustine, Fournier, Jonathan Isaac, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Vucevic. backed up by Michael Carter-Williams, which is a very great signing. Johnny Hammond made a great move there. Terrence Ross has been one of the top 6 men of the season. Then you got Wesley Wundu. You got Bamba will be out, folks, as he's been for a very long time now. But yeah, Kevin Burch just stepped up big time. Here's the thing. I love it. It should be a decent series in terms of just seeing what Toronto can do, getting warmed up. I think it's gonna be 4-1. It probably will end up being a sweep, to be honest. I believe Orlando might be able to steal a game there because Kawhi has not played many games at this many games at a time, and it's going to very much struggle for Kawhi to retain this throughout the whole playoffs unless he is healthy. That's been resting him the whole year. But I'm going to say that Steve Clifford's done an amazing job. Got to give him 100% props for the season so far. There's nothing to debate what he's done so far. This team, Augustine stepped up tremendously this year. Augustine's, I personally thought Orlando would not be. I thought they were going to be like the 29th ranked team in the NBA this year, to be honest. Because Augustine, I thought, could not step up. He's proven me wrong. He's proven I think everyone wrong. So he is a legit point guard that can hold it down for this year. Fuchuk obviously played on an all-star level. That has been spectacular. Aaron Gordon took a little bit step down after getting his big contract. I think has improved a little bit. He's still got a lot of work, only averaging 9.5 points per game, but his defense is solid. Fournier has been a solid guy that just quietly gets buckets. Michael Carter-Williams, as I said, was a great signing. Terrence Ross has been special off the bench. One last thing to talk about this Orlando Magic, though. There's a big issue here. This is a very new team, very young team. They only have 33 games of playoff experience on the Orlando Magic roster. 33 games. DJ Augustine has 28 of them, Fournier has 4, Vucevic has 1. Want something crazy? There's about 6 or 7 guys on the Toronto Raptors alone that have more playoff games than that. The starting lineup for the Toronto Raptors have 417 games of playoff experience. That is a lot of games. If you have the starting 5 lineup of Marcus has 59 games, Kawhi has 87, Kyle Lowry has 62, Ibaka has 109, and Danny Green has 100. That's going to be a big discrepancy. Orlando's getting new to this whole playoff atmosphere. Toronto's players are ready to get into it. They want their revenge from the past years of losing to LeBron James in the playoffs. So it's going to be a tough game for Orlando Magic. That's why I believe this is going to be, if anything, the best for Orlando Magic. I'll go to a 5-game series. We'll see what goes down, though. Let me see this next thing. Next series we got going on now is my favorite series, which I am dying for. Brooklyn vs. Toronto also was split 2-2 in the series this year. Or Brooklyn vs. Philadelphia split 2-2 this year. Philadelphia's record is 51-31. A home record of 31-10 and a away record of 20-21. Notice that number right there. Philadelphia struggled on the road, folks. They're under 500. Brooklyn is an amazing team at home, along with the fact that they have an amazing fan base at Barclays now. It's going to be rocking out there on Saturday. The first game opening up these NBA playoffs of 2019. First time 2015 in the playoffs, I believe. Or 2015. Brooklyn is 42-40 this year, 23-18 at home, 19-22 on the road. Yes, they do struggle, but JoJo may be out on that first game on Saturday morning. Let's say this now. Here's the reason. I think that this game might be a series that's going to Game 7. Let me tell you guys that right now. I believe Philly will win at 4-3, but Brooklyn has our chance here, folks. Because listen to this stat right here. Brooklyn has been by far way more efficient against the Philadelphia 76ers this year than any other team Brooklyn has played. Any other. Now, Brooklyn also uses the second most zone than any other team in the NBA behind Miami Heat. They use it 10%. Now, here's the crazy thing. As I said, Joel Embiid might be out this first game. He's dealing with injury. Brooklyn has outscored Philadelphia by 40 points in the 58 minutes that Embiid has not been on the court this season. Embiid's crucial to that team. He's the best player. I'm not going to debate nothing there. Nothing will be debated about Embiid being the best player on that team. I don't want no Ben Simmons talk. All right? Also, Philadelphia without Embiid is 8-10 this season. That is not a good record. Okay? That's not great at all, whatsoever. Okay? That's just what it is. That being said, I'm going to bring it into this. When Philadelphia has the 5 main guys that they've added on to their deadline trades with, I've talked about this many times, Ben Simmons, JJ Redick, Tobias Harris, Jimmy Butler, and Joel Embiid. When those 5 guys are on the court, they outscore opponents by 17.6 points per game. Think about that, folks. That is a blowout. That is a big-time blowout. Question is, will those 5 be able to play together, and how long due to injury? That is my biggest concern. Because let's break down this roster. As for the Philadelphia 76ers, you've got a team, like I said, Ben Simmons at the 1, Redick, Jimmy Butler, Tobias, and Joel Embiid. They've added some depth by the deadline in the buyout markets. McConnell, you got Jonathan Simmons. Zaire Smith's been playing nice. They didn't get Shake Milton back off the two-way deal. James Ennis, I believe, will be out for this entire first round. Furkan Korkmaz is coming back. Mike Scott and Jonah Bolden have been perfectionists since they come back. Bolden played an amazing game the other night against Minnesota. Boban Marjanovic, we all know he's a celebrity, fan favorite kind of player. The big giant. He'll be hard to stop. Amir Johnson, Greg Monroe also get some minutes there. As for my Brooklyn Nets, here's what we got going for you. We got D'Angelo, we got Joe Harris, we'll have Jared Allen for sure. Now, Brooklyn switches up, but I believe those three are locks, okay? Dinwiddie will be the backup. Look, Crabbe is out. We have issues there with Allen Crabbe not being able to play. Karis LeVert might step in. Otherwise, we'll have Rodion and DeMar Carroll be starting, I believe, 11 straight games now. Yes, you've got Rondae Hollis, you got Jared Dudley. The best backup big man, I believe, in the NBA, even in front of Mason Plumlee and others, is Ed Davis. All right? This is what you got going for Brooklyn. The starting lineup will probably be lopsided. Although D'Angelo and Ben Simmons can put on a show against each other. But listen, Brooklyn's best chance is taking them off the bench. Brooklyn's bench is amongst one of the best NBA benches in the entire NBA. They have the most times in the NBA. They've outscored the opposing team's bench most in the NBA this season. Also, they have the second highest scoring bench in the NBA behind the LA Clippers, which is a super team bench. This is what I got going on for my Philadelphia 76ers versus Brooklyn Nets. I love JoJo, but I'm sorry, Joel. Right now, I'm not a fan of you. I can't root for you. It's going down right now. Brooklyn's going in. Barclays will be rocking everyone. Next game is the 4 and 5. The Boston Celtics with the Indiana Pacers. Now, Boston has not been that very good this year. They were supposed to win the championship. Everyone thought they were winning. I didn't think that. But they're the 4th seed. And this is the only team they really played great against Indiana 3-1. Remember, Indiana did lose Victor Oladipo this season in a devastating injury. Please come back, Oladipo. You are crucial to that team. But Nate McMillan did an incredible job this past season. Boston has a record of 49-33, a home record of 28-13. Notice that. That is a big-time stat. 28-13 at home. They're not losing many games at home. That place can get rocking. We know how well Stevens knows how to coach in the playoff atmosphere. They're 21-20 on the road. As for Indiana, the 48-34 they finished the year. They finished the year 29-12, even better than Boston at home, and 19-22 on the road. In terms of this series, I got the Boston Celtics winning it 4-2, just because they are deep. I don't think they're going that much further. They're going to lose to Milwaukee in the next round. I'm going to get into that full playoff breakdown after this. But Boston's been the most efficient against Indiana all year than any other team. Any other team, they've been the best against Indiana than any other team, averaging 117.6 points per game, points per 100 possessions. It's been spectacular what they've done this year. That's what I got for this playoff series, all right? Let me say the rest of this now. This is the way I got the playoff bracket going. I got the Milwaukee Bucks taking down Detroit Pistons in 5 games. Celtics are taking down the Clippers, or taking down the Pacers in 6 games. Following that up, I got the Bucks taking down the Celtics in 6 games. Obviously, Bucks, that means they're going to the conference finals. Let me back this back up now. Philly and Brooklyn going to game 7. Philly taking that one. Raptors taking Magic to 5 games and then beating them. Now, Philadelphia's taking down Toronto in 7-game series. That's going to be a great series there. I believe that Philadelphia will defeat the Milwaukee Bucks in a 7-game series, advance to the to the NBA championship because of this, folks. If Malcolm Brogdon is 100%, Mirotic is back, all these boys are back, I got a different opinion. But because of the fact that those guys are all injured, and Philadelphia is mostly injured, that could be injuries that occur, I got Philadelphia advancing to the NBA championship. That storyline is lethal. And they have the best chance against Golden State in terms of just winning a couple games, because we all know who's winning that. So that's what I got for you guys, all right? Trust me, I wouldn't want to be going anywhere because my former coach, Coach Kurt Keener, is coming on, one of the most legendary high school basketball coaches. He's coming on to discuss so many topics that you're not going to want to go anywhere for. I promise. So please stay tuned and get ready for a show. It's a great honor to be able to welcome one of my former coaches, the 2019 McDonald's All-American head coach, 11-time state champion, and now coach of over 800 career wins, Coach Kurt Keener. How are you doing today, Coach?
I'm doing great, Zach.
That's awesome. So let's start off with the first question then. What was the feeling you had when you first got named All-American head coach?
I would say that when they initially called me, I was shocked because although I had players back in Michigan who had played in the game, back in Michigan, they had rules. The High School Athletic Association had rules that said when a player played in it, he couldn't play any more high school. Or if a coach got invited and coached in the game, he wouldn't be able to. He would have to suffer some penalty the next year. So when I moved out here to Arizona, I just kind of had figured that ship had sailed about me ever perhaps being able to coach in the McDonald's game. And so when I first got the call, I was shocked and surprised. And then I would say the next feeling was one of just feeling very humbled, very honored that I know how many great coaches there are in America, how many people would love the opportunity to coach in that game, and to be selected really was a very humbling feeling for me.
Yeah. And then also, what was also the feeling when you finally were able to reach 800 career wins?
That's a little bit different. That's, I guess, a sense of I've just been very blessed to, number one, have so many good athletes along the way to enable me to be successful, but also to have my health, to be in schools that supported, the way I coached and the things I did, so that I was able to coach for, more than 40 years. Getting wins is really a combination of what you do day in and day out as a coach, but also having the opportunity to be around that long.
For sure. And I guess also leading into the next question then, what made you want to decide to start coaching?
I think it goes back to my own experience as a high school player. I was very close to my high school coach. I came from a very athletic family. I had played sports all my life. I had brothers and sisters that had played, so I'd been around the game. When I went off to college and I thought, well, this is probably going to be the end of my playing career, and this was back in the 1970s, I was thinking about different career possibilities. And at that time, the United States and China had just opened back up their relations, so I thought maybe I'd go to China and be a businessman or something like that. But the more I looked into different activities, that I always kept coming back to wanting to do something I loved and staying as, with basketball, being a part of the sport of basketball was there. Many people in my family, my grandmother, several aunts and uncles, we had a lot of people in my family that were educators. And although you really can't ever get too rich being an educator, it's very satisfying. And so once I started taking classes in college and going out and visiting schools and sitting in classrooms and thinking, okay, this looks like it would be enjoyable, and I can teach, make a living, and coach, which was my passion. And all of those things seemed to come together, and no regrets whatsoever.
For sure. And then how did you get your first head coaching job?
A little bit funny. Back in the 1970s, I was living, I'd grown up in Michigan, at least from junior high on, and went to school in Ohio. And back in the Midwest at that time, there just weren't a lot of coaching positions or teaching positions open. And I was thinking that maybe I'd have to relocate out west, or a lot of people were going to Alaska, places like that, to find a job. I was on my campus. I had graduated, and so I stayed around campus to help out at the basketball camp that the school ran every year. And while I was sitting there in the evening, a friend of mine, a good friend who was also from Michigan, he was helping his girlfriend move from her dormitory into an off-campus house across the street from me. And after he was all done, he came over he said, could he use the phone? And said, sure. Then he came out and we were just talking, and he asked me what I was doing. And I said, well, I'm putting in applications and hoping to find a job. And he said, well, I have the school I went to back in Michigan. They're always looking for teachers. Let me go in and make a call. And so he did. And a few minutes later came back out and said, hey, there's somebody who wants to talk to you. So he put me on the phone with his former track coach, a guy named George Brown. And this was at Detroit Country Day. Now, keep in mind, David Merritt, who's my good friend, is a black kid from the city. I was from the suburbs of Detroit. And so we get talking, and the guy says, well, it sounds like, talking to David, you got three things going for you. That you've got your teaching credentials, so you're able to teach. You've got a background and interest in coaching, and you're black. And so we're looking for, those are three good things. We're looking for some young black teachers to come in and coach. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, do I say anything now or wait till I get an interview? But I kind of laughed and I said, hey, well, 2 out of 3 get me an interview. And And he said, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, Dave and I are buddies, but I'm white and he's black." And the guy laughed and he said, "Oh, I thought all David's friends were black." But the long and the short of it is, they brought me in for an interview, and so when I was hired, and this is straight out of college, I was hired to
Mm-hmm.
be a middle school history teacher, and then to be the JV football coach, assistant varsity basketball coach, and head track and field coach. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I arrived at school that fall, the former head basketball coach, he had kind of a run-in with the athletic director the year before, and he decided to leave, but he didn't tell anybody.
Mm.
So all of a sudden, they're scrambling around the first day of school to find somebody to fill his teaching position, which they did. But that person wasn't a basketball coach. So I think they offered the head basketball job to the girls' coach and some other football coaches, anybody and everybody, and nobody wanted to take it.
Mm-hmm.
And so about 2 weeks before the season started, they said, "Hey, rather than be the assistant coach, would you like to be the head coach?" And I said, "Sure." I didn't know anything any better. And before you know it, I was the head basketball coach, and I stayed there for 35 years.
Wow. So I guess that also can lead into the next thing. So you've obviously coached many great NBA players, college players like Chris Webber, Shane Battier, Mitch. But when you watch those kind of players, what necessarily traits do you see that really show to you that they're going to be a great player?
Well, I would say great to it's how you define greatness. Great to the extent that
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be able to play beyond college or play beyond high school into college and into the pros. First thing was they were all phenomenal athletes. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to play at the highest level, you've got to be, kind of a thoroughbred. It's not just about being tall, but you got to be athletic. You got to be strong. You got to, there's a lot of God-given traits. And
Mm-hmm.
then,
For
and then,
sure.
and then I would say after that, it comes down to the things that an individual can work on. All those guys were highly competitive, highly competitive. They, didn't like to lose at anything, especially basketball. I'd say they all had a passion for the game. They loved to be in the gym. They loved to do things that would help them become better basketball players. So they, it wasn't that just because they were tall or possessed certain physical characteristics. They wanted to be great. Even I tell Chris and Shane, if you guys were 6'2" or 5'9" instead of 6'9", you would have been college level players.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I think the next thing was they were very, very coachable. They
Mm-hmm.
they they tended to push themselves harder than anybody else could push them. So it wasn't a motivational issue. They were gonna work really, really hard all the time, um, and develop their skills. So those were the kind of things that I saw. From the first time that I saw Chris Webber as an eighth grader, or Shane when he was in seventh grade, or I didn't see Mitch, I think, until he was sophomore in high school. But they all had that drive and that passion and that love for the game that told me I think they can be special. Uh,
Oh yeah, for sure.
sometimes guys like that have all those intangibles, but they're just not blessed with the God-given physical talent, whether it's quickness or
Mm-hmm.
speed or strength or things like that. Now you got some little guys that can obviously go on and be great players, but I've seen kids that have all those intangibles, but they just don't have the physical tools to play on beyond high school.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And obviously, I mean, you've been a very successful coach, and I'm sure many colleges have contacted you either now or in the past. But why necessarily did you never consider or really want to be a college coach?
Well, you'd be surprised. It's really not a case that even when you're a successful high school coach, that
Mm-hmm.
colleges just come knocking on your door. The way organized sport is, if you want, it's kind of three levels: professional, college, and high school. I went back to school after teaching for 20 years to get my master's degree, and I got my master's degree in sports administration. And when I was at this little college down in Alabama called United States Sports Academy, it was just a very small graduate school only. There were about 200 students in a class. Um, and one of the things that I learned there, and that I kind of knew, but I learned it officially, was that when it comes to whatever level, the pros are looking for people that are interested in the pro career and get in at the bottom level. And the same thing with high
Mm-hmm.
school. Now there are some examples where great high school coach might be courted by a college program, but it's really pretty rare. You have to go to them. You have to apply, meet people, go through interviews, and really pursue that.
Hmm.
So one, I never really pursued it. There was a point in my career, I think I had been coaching for probably 20, 25 years. It was after I had gone through a nice run with Weber and a few years later with Battier. And, and I began to, look around and question, do I need another challenge? I had gone through a season that we were successful in terms of winning and losing, but I really didn't enjoy it, didn't enjoy the kids. And
Hmm.
at that, it was back in Michigan. And at that time, Tommy Amaker had just become the head coach at Michigan. I had known him when he was at Duke, and he had recruited Chris Webber to Duke. Uh,
Hmm.
Tom Izzo had just recently become the head coach at Michigan State, and I had known him for many years as he had coached, or he had helped to recruit Chris Webber and recruited Shane. And so I figured I could at least contact those guys, and I knew them well enough to get an interview. Ultimately, what stopped me from doing that was my own children. My children
Hmm.
had been at Detroit Country Day since they were in preschool. They were now, my oldest son, I think, was just coming out of junior high, getting ready for high school, and maybe was still in junior high. And my younger son was a few years behind him. And I just felt if I took a coaching job like that, two things. Number one, I would probably have to move to Ann Arbor or East Lansing,
Hmm.
and uh, and then I would be away. I'd be out recruiting. The hours that college coaches spend are so extravagant that I wasn't going to be there at a time in their lives that I thought they needed. But I, more than anything else, didn't want to take them out of a school environment that I thought was a great place. Detroit Country Day was the top academic school in the state of Michigan. So after much prayer and thought, I pretty much had to determine I wasn't going to pursue it. And then I had some of my younger players, guys that were sophomores and freshmen in the program, who came to me. I think they kind of caught wind I might be thinking about it, and they said, "Hey, coach, we're not like the seniors. We are committed. We're dedicated. We really want to play for you. Would you stay around?" And that kind of was uh, the nail in the coffin as far as me looking or thinking about going to the next level.
Hmm.
So now I'm at a different point in time, and I'm a little bit older, and I've accomplished a lot. So now I'm more open to considering something like that. But it's a tough thing to make the transition from high school to college.
Yeah, for sure. And so when you did move out to Arizona, what made you choose to go to Gilbert Christian?
When I first arrived in Arizona, I did so really through a contact, a former player of mine who was teaching middle school and coaching out in or up in Scottsdale at the Desert Mountain High School, and they have a junior high that's right kind of connected or across the parking lot. And he called me and said that, hey, we've got an opening for a head basketball coach, but there's no teaching position. Did I know anybody back in Michigan or any former players that might be interested in it? And my
Hmm.
wife and I had visited Arizona a lot for vacations over the years, and we kind of determined this was a place we were going to come to retire. I had a son. My youngest son was a student down at the U of A. And so after he asked me about that, I said, well, gee, maybe would they be interested in looking at an older guy rather than a younger guy?
Yeah.
And he said, oh, absolutely, of course. He just didn't think I'd even give any thought to it. So
Hmm.
that's what initially I found out that I could, in essence, retire at Country Day. Had been putting money away in a retirement account that I thought I had to wait till I was 60, and I was only 57 at the time. But when I found out that no, I could have officially retired and start collecting that pension when I was 55, that
Yeah.
that made it easier. So I came out, did an interview, and it was going to be a position that was just coaching, no teaching. Um, the folks up there at Desert Mountain had said that I could do summer camps and I could be a building substitute, just to have a little bit more of an income coming in.
Yeah.
And I thought it might be a nice way to kind of ease into retirement. When I got down there, uh, the AD and principal and some of the administrators who had hired me that spring all left to go to different high schools. And then some of the people that came in that didn't follow through with some of the things they had told me. And it was a big culture shock for me. I had been at a private school for 35 years, relatively small private school.
Mm-hmm.
Used to doing things a certain way, and a public school is 3,000 students, much bigger, different level of commitment, and different kind of kids. And so after the first year, I was kind of feeling that it wasn't the right fit. I was approached by, I had hired a gentleman who was my assistant, who I didn't know till I moved down here. And then in the spring, he was a club coach. He coached for Power Basketball Academy and coached their elite 17 and under team.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, well, you're the head coach in the winter season, and I'm the assistant. You want to flip-flop roles, and I'll be the head coach in club ball, and you can be my assistant. And I had never, and back in Michigan, I had never been involved in the club basketball scene.
Yeah.
Now I had a heck of a lot more free time and that, and I said, sure, let's do it. And through him, I was put in contact with the folks over at Gilbert Christian. They were in the process of looking for a coach. The coach that they had some issue and had to leave even before the season was over. So I interviewed for that position, and they hired me, and kind of the rest is history.
Mm-hmm. And so I know, obviously, now Chris Webber is in the running for Hall of Fame. He didn't get it this year, but I'm sure he will at some point. But what's the feeling like knowing that you've coached a player that you've still kept in great contact with that could be achieving one of the greatest honors in NBA and basketball history?
I'm just thrilled for Chris. Number one, he's most deserving. If you
Mm-hmm.
look at the sum of his whole career, I mean, he won 3 state championships in high school. He went on to college. He was part of an iconic Fab Five that changed basketball. 2
Mm-hmm.
times led his team to the Final Four. Didn't win a championship, but was right on the brink both times. Went into the pros, and as oftentimes a lot of people say, well, if you're in the pros, you got to win a championship to get true status. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of guys that just through various reasons, like Charles Barkley, never win a championship, but
Yeah.
they're great players. And Chris, I think over the course of his career, he probably averaged 20 plus points and 10 plus rebounds a game, and just was a great impact player, and has lived a remarkable life on and off the court. So I think it's only a matter of time, and I hope that I'm around to be there to share with it, share
Mm-hmm.
with him in that honor. I thought he deserved it last year, and I thought he deserved it this year.
For sure.
But I told him, just be patient. God will in time bless you, and you deserve it. That's the biggest thing,
Mm-hmm.
and is that he deserves that honor to be in the Hall of Fame.
For sure. And so I guess my next question will be, what's some of your favorite moments of coaching?
Oh gosh, that's a lot of different moments. I think back to when I first coached and got into it, and
Mm-hmm.
really had no idea what all it entailed. As a player, I knew how to impact the game on the court, but I had no clue as to how to do it from the sideline. And it took me 3-4 years before I realized that was kind of okay, this is what coaching is all about, and communicating and teaching and training. I think the first championship I won at Detroit Country Day back in 1989, I had been a coach for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember being overcome by emotion that all the other kids that had played in the preceding 10 years who really deserved an opportunity to be a state champion, and probably because I wasn't ready and knew how to do it, I felt for them that the championship was not only for that group and coaches and players of that year, but for the guys that had kind of paved the way in the preceding years. Um, gosh, I would say the first few championships, I won 3 championships with Chris Webber, and then I won 3 championships with Shane Battier. So the first 6 were kind of with a star player and other good college players.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2000, I think it was 2007, is when we next won a championship. And that team didn't have any superstar players. We weren't highly favored. As a matter of fact, we lost our last 5 games going into the tournament.
Wow.
and the team was ready to, the wheels were ready to fall off the wagon, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I was coaching Joe Dumars, who was at that time the general manager of the Pistons. His son was on the team, and he had a beautiful home with a basketball court built inside, and the kids would go over there and play. And he and I talked, and so then I think was the night after the final regular season game, he called all the guys together. They had oftentimes spend the night at his house, and he had told me he called all the guys together and said, "Hey, this is your team, your season. Some of you are seniors, some of you are underclassmen, but nothing's guaranteed. You can either choose to buy into what the coach says and follow his instructions, or challenge him like you have been doing, and you'll probably get knocked out very quickly." And they bought in, because we were not favored to win the first round. In Michigan, it was 3 rounds. It was 3 games in a district tournament. If you won that, you moved into the regionals, and it was 2 games. And if you won that, you moved into the what they call the state tournament, which was the quarterfinals, semis, and finals. So 3 weeks.
Okay.
And we were underdogs in the district, which was just the group of teams in our geographical area. We were underdogs in the regional, which was a much wider, several county area. And then of the 8 teams that made it, to the quarterfinals, we were probably they didn't do seedings, but we would have been seeded 8th.
Wow.
And so to win that game, and to do it the way that we did, with the kids totally buying into the things myself and my assistants were coaching, was very, very satisfying. Because we played a much slower pace. We didn't have superstars, so we had to control the pace and be disciplined. And if we were able to get a 5 or 6 point lead, we could spread the court out. Not that we were stalling, but we had not great size, but real good ball handlers. Then we could dictate the tempo and make teams foul us. And so a 4 point lead was like a 10 or 15 point lead with most teams. So that was very, very satisfying. Just being around kids, just being able to see guys develop over the course of time. See guys that when they were freshmen, maybe, weren't very good players. And then by the time they were seniors, they were good enough to get recruited to college, or to go on and continue to play. I found that to be real, real satisfying.
So then would that be one of your favorite state championships then, or which one would be your favorite?
Oh gosh, that's hard to say. The first one I remember was very emotional. That one certainly, because we were able to win with kids that weren't going to go on and be big time college players with that. I think the last one in 2009, I had probably my most talented team. I had a 6'11" center who was recruited by everybody. He committed to Georgetown, then decommitted to Georgetown, and ended up going to Syracuse. I had a 6'8" power forward who ended up going to University of South Florida, transferred and played at DePaul, and then went back as a grad transfer to South Florida. I had a 6'6" small forward, which was Jordan Dumars, Joe's son, and he was he was recruited to. I take it back. My 6'8" power forward went to Miami of Florida. Dumars went to the University of South Florida. The other off guard, my true guard, was super athlete, all state football, basketball, track. Ended up going to Michigan State to play football, and then got drafted into the NFL. Played most of his career with the Denver Broncos, and I think he's got traded or he's playing with the New York Giants now. And then my point guard was a junior. So those 4 other starters were seniors. My point guard was a junior, and that was Ray McCallum. He ended up being a McDonald's All-American 2 years later. Had a great college career, got drafted, played with the Kings and the Spurs, and is now currently playing overseas. So that was the starting 5. Off the bench, I had a 6'9" kid, Amir Williams, who would become McDonald's All-American. I had a point guard that went off to Central Michigan when he graduated and played 4 years. But the point being is that I had on that team probably 9 or 10 guys that played Division I basketball or football.
Wow.
So
That's
so
awesome.
that's a great talent, and we didn't win.
Hmm.
We were rated at one point. We were rated fourth in the country. We played. We were undefeated. We went to Indiana and we played their best team, that was rated fifth in the country. Uh, Lost in a close game, and then came back to Michigan, kind of marched through the tournament, and then got shocked in the quarterfinals. And
Wow.
and so that team not winning was devastating, to have that much talent and not win. But then the next
Hmm.
year, Ray McCallum, as a senior, came back with a bunch of other young guys, talented, but guys that had not been in a big role and won a championship. And he was dominant. I think he had 26 points in the first half. Probably could have set the state record if he was so inclined for scoring in a state championship game. But he wanted to make sure everybody got involved and distributed the ball, and the game was never in doubt. Ended up, I think, with 35 points. That was satisfying, very, very satisfying. And then my last one in 2013 back in Michigan, I was thinking that I was getting near the end of my career and this might be the last time, and just it was a very emotional thing to go through it. I was very, very blessed that the fact that in my career, uh, once we got over the hump, it took 10 years. We then were always competitive. Um, got to the quarterfinals or semifinals quite a bit, and lost. But of all the years, the 9 times we made it to the championship game, we always won. So I never, and that held true here in Arizona. I've never been in a state championship game where my team didn't win.
Wow.
And so every time we get there, I always think, well, the laws of probability are going to catch up, and there's got to be some time where we don't win, but always we seem to find a way to win. So I think for me, that's something that's very, very special because I know how difficult that is.
For sure. And so, when you do consider retiring, what would be the dream way of your last season panning out?
Um, you think anybody would love to go out on top and win
Hmm.
their last game and sail off into the sunset. Um, I would like to feel um, as good about the kids and their effort and how they play and what they do as I feel right now. I mean, I love being around kids. I love competing. I love coaching, and whatever point it comes to an end, uh, as long as I have that same feeling, I can feel it's going to be very satisfying. At
Hmm.
times, I thought, well, maybe it would be nice to give the college scene a try, and I don't know that at my age I would be a head coach, but I think I have something to offer, that I would make a good assistant coach and be able to mentor other coaches and mentor players. Um,
Hmm.
but that's where I think my faith comes in. I just trust in God that He'll open the doors that He wants. I've always felt God had a purpose for my life, and I've trusted in Him. And so, where He'll lead me, I just hope I'm smart enough to recognize it and to listen and follow.
For sure. I guess that perfectly leads into the last question. So I always try to incorporate some kind of God and religious stuff into it. So where have you seen God help you the most during your entire coaching career?
Um, I can remember back when I was uh, fairly young, and I think it was probably the third year I had Chris. We had won the championship as sophomore when he was a sophomore, and we were in a lower division. In Michigan, it was four classes: A, B, C, and D, with A being the biggest and D being the smallest. We were a Class C school, and we had made a decision. In Michigan, you could take your team up to a higher level to compete if you wanted.
Hmm.
Um, and so we had made a decision with Chris and the other players that were in his class to go up and move from Class C to Class B. And that was very rare back in Michigan at that time. Very few teams did that. And
Hmm.
we did it. And so we were getting ready to face in the championship game the defending Class B state champions, a very good team, very good, well coached team. And so I was really, really nervous. And we had won the semifinals on a Friday, and then we were gonna play the championship game on a Saturday morning, and I couldn't sleep at all, and so I woke up in the middle of the night and went down and opened up my Bible, and I just opened it up not looking for any kind of this, God, give me some directions. And I opened it up, and it opened to a verse about be still my heart. And I read that, and it just, a sense of calmness came over me. Like it's hard to describe. I went from being a bundle of nerves and not being able to sleep, and just having doubts about whether I could lead the team to a victory against this very good squad, to having perfect calmness and a sense of he's in control, and I just have to go along with it. And that feeling stayed with me. The next day we went out and we played, and it was not a blowout, but it was a close game. But I was never nervous. I was able to think clearly and make decisions clearly, and we were successful. And I have no doubt that I reached out to God in prayer, and He heard my prayer, and He answered my prayer.
Mm-hmm.
I look at my whole career and I say I'm blessed. I'm blessed so much that God enabled me to be in places, in schools, and be with young people, and at times turn what appeared to be a mess or a heartache. I mean, you don't coach for as long as I have and not have some problems along the way, parents and injuries and illnesses and bad attitudes and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always trusted in the Lord to give me the direction that I needed in making decisions. I trusted in the Lord, to leave everything behind in Michigan and come out here to Arizona. And He led me to Gilbert Christian, and the success we've had there in the last 5 years. So I'm just a very strong believer in the power of prayer, and my faith has seen me through. I would say probably the time I'm most dependent on God was not on the basketball court. It was off the court. This was back in 1992. It was the year after Chris had graduated, and at the end of the school year, our school had these big auction, and it did auction items. And one of the items that was put up for auction was my wife, who's a great cook, would fix a soul food dinner, and the players on the team would come out to whoever bought the item and serve it to the people, to interact with them. Well, we did it for several years, and people really didn't want to be served by the basketball team. They wanted to come out and play basketball and interact. And so on that year, this is the spring of '92, my one of the families bought it, and they had children that were peers, that were high school peers of our kids, and they had a beautiful home out on a lake, and what they wanted was just to have a big kind of end of the year celebration for their children and the basketball team and all of that. And we did, and the kids were out swimming, and a few of the basketball players took a canoe out into the lake. And as they were coming back, they were goofing around, as kids are apt to do. And they were standing in the canoe and tilting it back and forth. And lo and behold, it got filled with water. Well, I didn't know that, but anybody would tell you a canoe doesn't sink. It can fill up with water, but it won't ever sink. This is the way it's made. But the guys were trying to paddle it back in, and it was probably harder because it was much heavier. And at some point, a couple of them decided, well, they're just going to jump in and swim to shore. And I wasn't too worried. I was on the shore watching them, and the guys that jumped in were I'd seen them swim in the summer and knew that they could swim. And it may have been a combination of them being tired, or the water was cooler because it was June in Michigan, which is still relatively cool. Anyway, one of the boys about halfway in began to struggle. And at first you think, oh, the kid's just goofing around, he's playing around. Then when everybody realized he was in trouble, we jumped in the water. I swam out to where he was. By that time he had gone under the water. And now we're diving in knowing that he's in trouble. And can we find him? Can we get him up? We know we only have a few minutes. And it was just a terrible feeling. You're diving down into water that was probably 12 or 15 feet deep. Once you get below the surface, it's pitch black. You can't see anything. You're just feeling around, hoping that you can, touch his arm or get a hold of him, or at the same time fearful, if you do, can you even get him up? And the tragic thing was that the young man drowned. Two other boys swam into the shore. One boy who couldn't swim very well remained on the canoe, And in all the commotion of trying to save Corey, nobody noticed the other boy, Paul, all of a sudden was no longer in the canoe. Now, whether he jumped in or fell in or whatnot, nobody knows, but he also drowned. And so to lose two of your players was tremendously traumatic for me and the other players. And again, I got through that only through the faith that I had in God and talking with the boys' parents that both of them had accepted Christ and were saved. So I knew, as much as I missed them, that they were in heaven with the Lord. But I don't think, if I didn't have my faith, if I didn't believe that, I probably would have gotten out of coaching. I was so emotionally devastated to be there and feeling guilty, and why couldn't I have saved him, and why did I even have him out there? I mean, you go through a whole gamut of emotions, but
Yeah, I can imagine.
God helped me through that.
Wow. Well, Coach, I just really want to thank you for everything you've done for me, and it's really been a blessing having you on here, Coach. I do want to wish you the best of luck for your rest of your career and in teaching, and you're always welcome to come back whenever whenever you like.
Okay, Zach, I'm just real proud of you. It's been a few years since I've seen you play basketball, but to see that you always were a young man that was more than just an athlete and a basketball player. So I commend you on this podcast and what you're doing, and God will open up lots of doors for you. So I truly believe that. So thanks for having me, and anytime you want me to come back on, I'll be happy to join you.
All right, great. Thank you, Coach.
All right, Zach, take care.
Now, I'm on the West Coast. This is what's coming up next. Western Conference Playoff Preview. Let's go talk about it. Stay tuned, see what I have to say, and who's going to win this series and who's coming out of the West. It might be obvious, but see who I got. My Brooklyn Nets are. But I do know, and I do realize the Western Conference is better. That is why I'm saving them for last. All right? Here's the Western Conference the way it's set after a busy Wednesday with a lot of shuffling. Your number one team is Golden State Warriors, which are my pick to win the NBA championship, followed by Denver, Portland, Houston, Utah, Oklahoma City Thunder, San Antonio Spurs, and 8th is the LA Clippers. So let's get right into it. The 1 versus the 8 seed is the Warriors versus the Clippers. Doc Rivers done an incredible job all year. Wonderful job having 2 rookies in the starting lineup. And let me say a quick stat about this. They are only the 4th team in NBA history to win 45-plus games with not a single current or former NBA All-Star. That's how special they are. It is a small bench city in that squad. It is something special. Gallinari stepped up his game big time. Zubac has been big time for them, and so on and so on. But they are playing the Golden State Warriors. That being said, here's some stats about the Warriors. They're 57-25 with a record this year, finishing 3rd in the NBA in overall record. Their home record is 30-11, only losing 11 games. Their away record is 27-14. They also beat the Clippers 3-1 in the season series this year. Clippers, on the other hand, their record of 48-34. Home record was 26-15. Their away record is 22-19. Now, here's something crazy. I got something going on in this series. This is what I got going on for you guys. It's so sweet. Warriors are winning 4-0. You want to know why? Here's the stats. Since Kerr's taken over, they won 16 out of 18 games in the first round. Just think about that. 16 out of 18, folks. I don't see how there's going to be too much discrepancy. This will be a show. Now, trust me. I think that the world will about be taking notice of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Landry Shamet, one of the greatest, best young backcourts in the entire NBA. They're going to see those two are going to be put on blast. It's going to be tough. The 2 young superstars in the budding will be seeing into what one of the greatest, if not the greatest backcourt duo in NBA history is with Curry and Clay. They'll be going head at it for at least 4 games, possibly a 7-game series, obviously. But once again, I have the Warriors winning because I have the Warriors winning it all, folks. Next up, though, I'm going to hit this up right now. Denver Nuggets versus the San Antonio Spurs at 2 versus 7. All right? The Denver Nuggets have a record of 54-28 this year, a home record of 34 and only 7 losses. That's what I'm saying. They're not going to lose too many at home, but there's an issue here. They're 20-21 on the road. Think about that. They're under 500 as the number 2 seed, all right? Now, the stats for the San Antonio Spurs, a very well-coached Greg Popovich has got their team to be 48-34. Home record of 32-9, all spectacular, but on the road they struggle, 16-25. That's why, in my opinion, guess what I think this game's going to? This is the Game 7 type of thing, all right? This is going to Game 7. Both teams know how to perform on the road, or at home. They struggle on the road. Therefore, we're going to go back and forth, folks. It's going to be 2-2, 1-1-1, and Denver will walk away. Or no, sorry, Denver is not walking away from me. I got San Antonio walking away. And here's my reason. Denver's a young team. They're going to slip on one of these games. One of these games, Pop will catch them lurking. They're going to catch them sleeping. It just is what it is. I think Denver is a very great team. Now listen to this lineup real quick. You got Jamal Murray, a very young budding star. Gary Harris, but here's my opinion. I like Malik Beasley more than Gary Harris. I think Beasley should be starting in front of Harris. That's just my opinion. Monte Morris has been a fabulous backup point guard. He's become what Isaiah Thomas was supposed to be signed for. Will Barton, you got Craig, Hernan Gomez, don't forget Michael Porter. He's still going to be coming back next year. That's what's making this team super special. Only guy with legit playoff experience is Paul Millsap. You got Trey Lyles backing him up. And obviously the MVP candidate, Nikola Jokic, and Plumlee backing him up. That being said, there's going to be quite a bit of a show going on here. Except for the fact that they are very, very young and unexperienced. As on the other hand, with the San Antonio Spurs, you got to forget, DeJounte Murray was a very young point guard that I thought could have made the All-Star game, but he had an ACL injury just to start the season. So you got Derek White, Breen Forbes, DeRozan, Rudy Gay, and Aldridge. They switch up the starting lineup. Sometimes Patty Mills has been excellent off the bench. Marco Bellinelli. You've got Cunningham, Jakob Poeltl, DeMontis Montezumas is backing the league, folks. Lonnie Walker's been showing up, though. He's been showing up, and he's going to change this whole team. The San Antonio Spurs look like a very great young team. I'm going to preview them when I get into the offseason previews and free agency stuff. But Lonnie Walker's something special. I thought he's going to be a breakout year, but he was injured just like a lot of San Antonio Spurs are the rookie year. So that's what we're going to get into there now. All right. Now, one other thing I'm going to talk about Denver. They have 13.1 points per game, points per 100 possessions at home. That's plus. That's 13.1 better at home. So there's a big drastic drop off there. Next, we're talking about the Portland Trailblazers versus Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, if you guys remember my last episode on Monday, I said that this is a rivalry that I die to watch. I want to see this happen. And guess what, folks? It's going on. Now, yes, with Nurkic versus Steven Adams would be physical and a great show. Obviously, we don't know when Nurkic is out for a very long time. But Canada's been showing up so far, and he will continue to. Portland has a record of 53-29. At home, they're 32-9. On the road, they're 21-20. As for the Oklahoma City Thunder, they're 49-33 is what they finish off the year off. They start off like a half of the year. There's some injuries and bugs. Hopefully, Westbrook and Paul George can get healthy and stay healthy. They got 27-14 at home, 22-19 away. They were split the series 2-2 this year. But listen, this will be a show, folks. Portland versus Oklahoma will be a show. Oklahoma Chesapeake Arena will be rocking. Here's what you got for your Oklahoma City Thunder. You got Westbrook. Roberson will still be out. He's been out for almost 2 years, like I said. But you got Terrence Ferguson stepping up big time recently. Paul George, Jeremy Grant, and Steven Adams. Schroeder's one of the best backup point guards. I've had the best backup point guard. No, he's the second best. Dinwiddie's the best. Let's just say that. You've got Burton playing some good minutes. Markieff Morris, I love that sign. And Nerlens Noel. Now, on the other hand, with the Portland Trailblazers, you got Damian Lillard, Damian versus Russell Westbrook. That's going to be a show, folks. Two of the most underrated point guards, in my opinion. People keep saying Westbrook's overrated. That's BS. That's ridiculous. Westbrook is not overrated. He's underrated. Man had a 20-20-21. He averaged a triple-double once again. And Damian, that's a supermax kind of guy. CJ McCollum is getting back and being healthy. Mo Harkless, Aminu. Then you got Enes Kanter. You got Seth Curry, Evan Turner, Jake Layman. You got Myers Leonard and Zach Collins. Now, Anthony Simons put on a show, everyone. If y'all saw that last game, wow. There's a lot of guys in that last night that put on a great show. He was one of them. But this will be a show, folks. Get ready for Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Portland Trailblazers. This is going to be a big-time game. But guess what? I got the Thunder winning 4-3. Game 7. This is going all the way down to the wire. This is going to be a close, clutch game. Get ready, folks. Because both these teams are coming off very disappointing busts from last year. Obviously, the Carmelo situation last year, losing to Utah in the first round, and Portland getting upset, swept, I believe, by New Orleans last year. That was a problem. But let's get into the last one. You got the Houston Rockets versus the Utah Jazz. I'm a big fan of this. Before we get into this, let me discuss Harden. Yes, I do believe Giannis is winning MVP still. Harden's been spectacular. Greatest scoring since Kobe, Michael Jordan even. It's been spectacular. Here's a stat about that. Harden, only 6 players to average 35 points per game or more in a season, joining Barry, Baylor. MJ did it twice, Wilt did it 5 times, Kobe, and now James Harden. That's great. But it's Utah versus Houston. Houston finished off with a record 53-29. Remember, they started with a slump, so they fell to fourth. That beginning of the year slump was not good with the Carmelo situation. We know what happened there. They got depth, they got healthy, and Harden turned up to a whole other level. At home, the 31-10 on the road, the 22-19. Watch out. As for the Utah Jazz, 50-32, home record of 29-12, and away record of 21-20. Pretty close there. This season, they've split the series 2-2. Now, guess what? I'm excited for this. Sometimes it's going to be a little interesting. They're pretty much evenly based teams. More Utah's a younger version of Houston, in my opinion. I've talked about this, I believe 3 episodes straight now. Exum is an on-the-rise kind of guard, okay? He's dealt with so many injuries that this big three has been destroyed by that. So, here's what you got for the Utah Jazz, though. Rubio, Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, Derek Favors, Gobert. I truly believe Mitchell is the closest thing we're going to see Dwayne Wade in a very long time from now, ever again. Rudy Gobert is just like your Clint Capella, but I'm going to say Donovan Mitchell is more like your Harden for this matchup. It's going to be a great series that happened last year. Utah did lose in that series, but Donovan Mitchell was a rookie. You got Rubio, like I said, X amount of he's probably also got Ron Neto. Grayson Allen dropped out maybe 40 points last night. Jeez, he went off. You got Kyle Korver's a big addition. Jay Crowder's played an amazing level off the bench this year. I give him full props there. Royce O'Neal, you guys know I'm very high on him. Crowder, once again, he's played amazing off the bench. Udo has got potential. Tony Bradley. But here we go. This is what I got for Houston. You got Chris Paul, James Harden, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, Capella. Tucker was one of the believe only 7 players that played all 82 games, along with Tobias Harris, Kemba Walker, Bradley Beal, and a couple others. Austin Rivers is a great addition midseason for the backup. Daniel House, I'm glad they signed him back. You got Iman Shumpert, Gerald Green. You got Gary Clark. Kenneth Freed's been big time today, finishing off his NBA career, I believe. It's going to be a show. What do I got? Who do I got winning this series, though? It has to come down to winning the Utah Jazz. I said in the beginning they're going to the conference finals. It's not going to work out because they're playing Golden State, which I said they will lose to. I believe it's going to go to Game 7. The 4-3 Utah Jazz will win it. That's why I had the predictions. Beginning of the day, I said that Houston will not be in that final. It will not be in the top 4 rankings. Get that wrong, but they're out in the first round. I just don't see them advancing. It is what it is. I'm sorry, but they're not advancing. They're not advancing, folks. Now, this is going to be a terrific series, guys. This is going to be a special playoffs. Yes, we know Golden State's winning it. But here's what I got for you guys in the Western Conference, all right? Warriors, Clippers, 4-0 Warriors. Rockets versus Utah Jazz. I got a 7-game series. Jazz are taking it. Trailblazers versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. 4-3 Trailblazers. Denver versus San Antonio. 4-3 San Antonio. Now listen up, folks. Warriors are beating the Jazz 4-1. It's not going to be a show. Warriors advancing. We know what kind of level they turn up to. You're right on Boogie, though. You're right on Boogie. Thunder versus San Antonio. Thunder advancing 4-1. You're going to have a Western Conference Championship. A Thunder Warriors. It's going to be a show. 4-2 Warriors. Guess who got winning it, folks? Warriors 4-2. 6-game series. Beating the Philadelphia 76ers. Once again, Milwaukee could be in there if they're healthy, and they prove that they are healthy. It's going to be a show, though. It will be a show. Stay tuned. Playoff starts Saturday. It's going to be a show. You know what time it is. The grand finale, SchuZ Zone. Don't be going anywhere. You're going to want to stay tuned. It's a quick one today. 4 topics, 4 big losses in hirings, and 1 crazy stat. Stay tuned to see what I got to say in SchuZ Zone. Yes, I realize it's the playoff preview, and the Lakers didn't make the playoffs, obviously. But guess what? They can't stay out of the media, so I got to put some of their stuff in the SchuZ Zone. First topic we're going to talk about is Magic Johnson has resigned as the LA Lakers president of basketball operations. Now, let me say something. I said I'll talk a little bit about this on my Instagram TV. Go catch it if you guys haven't already seen it. I'm now previewing and doing a recap of the NBA every night on Instagram TV. Also, will be on my YouTube channel, Zach Shoemaker, SchuZ Views. But let's get into this right now. Magic Johnson has left the LA Lakers. Now, let me tell you something. I know what happened. I'm pretty sure I know what went down here. Magic Johnson was not happy. I think he has the potential to be a good manager. And I understand he's going to say, yes, of course he would have missed not being able to text Dwayne Wade, not being able to see the different players and talk and train with players and being an ambassador for the NBA. But listen, that's not what happened. That ain't the truth. He didn't want Luke Walton there. He didn't want Luke Walton when he first went in there. I don't even think he wanted Rob Pelinka there. Rob Pelinka and Luke Walton were not his hirings. That was Bus and originally crew. not Magic Johnson. He wanted new stuff. He wanted Luke Walton out of there at the beginning of the season. He wanted Pelinka gone at least midway, and he wanted the Anthony Davis trade being done, that Genie bus held up. He felt disrespected and dishonest, and someone's been leaking stuff out of the LA room. It should not be happening at this level, and he was upset and he wanted out. That's what happened, folks. Now, I'm happy Magic Johnson's free. He can go back to recruiting for LA, hopefully. He can go and talk to people. He can train. He can train Ben Simmons finally. But listen, stuff is not right in LA. I've been saying this for a while. I didn't think stuff was going to happen in LA. Everyone said they're going to land their top free agents. I said no. Jimmy Butler, Klay Thompson, maybe the max they're going to get. Stuff is not right in LA, and it's becoming very well apparent with Magic Johnson not leaving. Some people say Kobe, no. I like Pelinka. I want to see what he's got. Luke Walton should have been fired at about 4 o'clock today, same time as Yeager and bigger staff and other players and coaches have been fired. Larry Drew also parting. All this should have been done today. There's no business he's still in that room. He's not qualified for this job. Leading a championship team, no. Not at all. Same with the LA Lakers real quick. This is a crazy stat. 82.4% of the players on NBA rosters were not in the NBA when LeBron James first time he went to the NBA playoffs. Or in NBA Finals. You hear that? 82.4%. It's been a long time. You're not going to see LeBron even in the playoffs this year, obviously. Yeah. Great that you showed support for Dwayne Wade in his final game. Also, big props. Thank you, Dwayne Wade and Derek, for all you guys have done. Much appreciated. But that's the thing. Now there's some staff moves. I'm going to start with the good notes. Guys that got resigned. Very, very, very happy with the Chicago Bulls' decision there. Very well done. It was a perfect hiring. Resigning. Great move. He's the perfect combination for them. Took over and did great. Now listen up to this. Larry Drew and Cavs mutually parted ways. I think that was obvious. Can't believe Tyronn Lue was already fired in the beginning of the year. I felt like forever ago. But Larry Drew is no longer with the Cleveland Cavaliers. They'll be looking to hire someone else. And they even said they want to hire a player developmental coach. Not very common before Kenny Atkinson. Let me just say that reminder. Dave Yeager was fired today by the Sacramento Kings. Big time surprise move. Vlade Divac got re-signed and had more power. But he decided to let go of Dave Yeager. Disappointing ending of the season. Beginning of the year, I was very upset with Dave Yeager. I wanted Marvin starting. He didn't get a start, but listen, Marvin played tremendous at the end of the year. I say this, Sacramento Kings will be in the Western Conference playoffs next year, and Marvin, De'Aaron Fox will be all-stars. Understood? Great. Now they need to get a coach that can coach them well, too. Dave Yeager, I hope, is not going to Minnesota. I love Saunders. He's perfect. He's the best he's going to take out of Wiggins and Towns possible. That being said, Yeager will find a job somewhere else. He impressed everyone. Who would have thought Sacramento would be a 39-win team? Not me. Last move of the day, we had JB Bickerstaff. He was fired. Surprising, but not really. Wasn't that too many years. Also, Chris Wallace, the GM of the Memphis Grizzlies, was reassigned to leading the scouting department. Also, other news, Phoenix Suns, they re-signed James Jones, brought in some new management. They might be fine. Igor, we'll see. I'm happy with the move. Hopefully, Sarver gives them the ability to do with the moves that they want to be getting done because they need a point guard. Phoenix gets yourself a point guard, you got a playoff team, you got a contending team on the way. That's what I want to say about that. That's wrapping up SchuZ Zone, everybody. I hope that this special midweek episode was great and that you guys all enjoyed it today. I would like to say thank you once again. This does conclude the 6th episode of SchuZ Views. Now, if you want to stay up to date and get involved in future SchuZ Zone episodes, follow me at Zach Shoemaker on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can also subscribe to my account on YouTube. Please leave a 5-star review if you love viewing SchuZ Views, or follow, subscribe, like on wherever you could possibly do it, depending on the platform that you have. We'll be getting back into it Monday, back to the regular schedule right after the playoffs. I'll be hitting that topic up. Maybe more firings, maybe more signings. But special guest Mitch Lightfoot will be on the way. Enjoy the playoffs this week, everybody. Thank you once again. That's all I want to say today. I am your host, signing out, Zach Shoemaker. I'm out, and God bless.